Hi, this is Mike Renato with Athletic Motion Golf. On this episode of Pros vs. AMs, we're going to compare the professional golfers with the amateur golfers and see if we can't find a few more yards off the tee by looking at how the right knee flexes. Probably should start the video because knee flex can be a hot topic sometimes. That we don't have a preference. We see great golfers extend the knee, flex the knee. It really doesn't matter to us. But I do want to point out why that can be so misleading. So when I first saw this image, and I've showed this to a few people, and they pretty much said the same thing. I see a golfer who's slightly straightening his knee. Our tour average is a 3-degree loss in knee flex. And that's kind of what I see in this image here. Now, the difficulty with that is that to really see knee flex with a camera, right? We're all used to seeing knee flex talked about, based on video images or still images from a camera. That camera really needs to be that camera lens locked right on the center of the knee joint, and then it needs to rotate. The camera needs to rotate as the knee rotates. That would be the most realistic or true version of seeing knee flex in the golf swing, especially in the backswing. But what we're usually left with is just kind of this generic down the line view. We're fortunate here with Gears is that we're able to put a number with this. So this is the same golfer, the same exact swing. We can see he starts with 19 degrees of knee flex. But what actually looked like to me when I saw it was that he was losing flex. He's actually gaining flex to the point of 9 degrees, almost 10 degrees of flex gained. I saw about a 3-degree loss. So it can be very deceiving, especially when you start looking at, legs under pants, baggy pants. It's just deceiving to look at. But again, this isn't necessarily about the backswing. We really don't care as far as if a player loses or gains flex because both styles are in the Hall of Fame. We're more interested in the downswing. And that's what we want to really focus on in this video. And we're going to look at this benchmark here of address to top of the backswing, and then where the player regains his knee flex, his original right knee flex, which in this case, he increased his knee flex going back, so that doesn't apply. And then where both knees kind of level out and share the same amount of knee flex. And I want to pay special note while we're on this frame of where the hands are. The hands are roughly belt high, waist high, with the club head still way up above the golfer's shoulder. And then we also want to take a look at where his rotation is. So at the top, he's minus 46 degrees of rotation. And then down here by the golf ball, he's basically 47 degrees open. So it's a very close mirror image backswing to impact. Now let's take a look at our second pro here. And I think it was important to use two pros just to show both sides of the coin because, again, right knee flex can be kind of a polarizing topic. We don't care. We just want to show you how both can work. So we see this golfer start roughly an identical amount of knee flex, but he's actually going to straighten his knee going back. And then we can see at the top he has almost 29, 30 degrees of rotation in the backswing. And then look at how quickly he regains his knee flex his original knee flex coming down. So we see golfers straighten the knee going back, various amounts, they put that knee flex back in very, very quickly. And then we're going to scroll him down to where both knees share the same flex, roughly right here. And we can see, again, his hands are roughly waist high, club head still way up there by the shoulder. And then as we scroll him down through to impact, we can see, again, it's almost a mirror image. I think he's got 5 degrees more open than he had closed in the backswing. So let's compare those movements with what we typically see with an AMS move. All right, so this gentleman came in with a very common complaint that he just wasn't hitting the ball as far as he felt like he should be. And he's in his mid-50s, and he was right. He should be hitting the ball farther. So let's take a look at how he moves. So we see a very early straightening of the right knee. Gets to the top of his backswing, he maxes out at 56 degrees of rotation. And he gets to the top of his backswing at 54 degrees of rotation, 10.5 degrees in his right knee flex. So we're going to see him gain that original flex much later than the pro example. And then if we scroll him forward to where both knees are the same flex, we're going to see something very different. We're going to see the club head for the first time, way down there by the golf ball, hands kind of top of the thigh, versus the pro examples, both of them, where we didn't see the club head at all, was way up by their shoulder, and the hands were much higher. And then we're going to scroll down into impact, and we see kind of a similar thing with the knees, and you can see where he's got 34 degrees open at impact, coming from minus 54 at the top of his swing. So let's compare in a little more detail why this golfer wasn't getting the distance relative to what we've seen so far. So I think it's important to kind of reiterate a point that these two swings we're not just comparing one particular pro versus one particular am. Instead, we're using two swings to represent a very large data pool with kind of each classification of golfer. And, we have to show you two swings or there would be no video. So we're just pulling these two out as representations of what the overall data pool shows. So this is not one pro versus one am. It's just a representation. I think it'll be more beneficial to you as you're kind of thinking about your own swing as you're watching these with that in mind. So if we take a look at this, with this golfer on the right, our amateur golfer, he's really bought into the idea of, more rotation will give him more distance. And that's pretty common, it makes sense. You got pros do a lot of rotation. They hit it far. Why don't I get a lot of rotation so I can hit it farther too? The problem is, we've all probably heard of the term empty calories. I certainly have. There's a lot of empty rotation out there. And depending on how you rotate, and more importantly, when you rotate and what that does to the forces you're applying in the golf swing, really determines if rotation is going to help you hit the ball farther. And this amateur, he had empty rotation because all of this rotation really wasn't helping him. If we scroll him to the top, we can see he has a significant amount more rotation in his pelvis than their pro does. And what you're not seeing is his torso rotation, which was plus 35 compared to the pro as well. So it's not a physical issue with regard to flexibility or ability to demonstrate rotation in the golf swing that was keeping this golfer from hitting it farther. It was his ability to time the forces that happen in the golf swing and have them happen early enough to take advantage of them to produce more distance. So if we scroll them through, we'll look at where they regain flex. See, the Arc Pro does it much sooner. So which puts him, it's a quarter of a second for the downswing. So it's already got him behind the 8-ball relative to the time. And that's the big point here to consider. And then if we take him to where the knees regain the same flex of the downswing. What's cool about this landmark is that this is also, if we're looking at the forces that a player is generating and putting into the ground to help him rotate, to help him, shift his body certain areas, that really coincides with this point in the downswing where the knees kind of regain flex. And if we look at the screen here, you can see how very similar knee flexes for both golfers. A big difference in rotation plus the AM, right? So the AM is positive in the rotation far more than the pro, and very similar knee flexes. So why is this golfer not generating more speed than he currently is? Well, look at where the club head is. We actually can't see it, but the club head is way up there by the pro's shoulder. That gives him time to not only peak these forces, but it gives him time to translate that into club head speed. Our amateur has not peaked his forces yet, and he has zero time for those forces to show up as club head speed. So a significant difference in where these two golfers are reaching this kind of same flex knee position in the downswing. And it's something that we see so often. It's not a physical limitation. You can see our AM's got way more rotation and had way more rotation in the backswing. He's just so late generating the forces needed to produce club head speed that, and to the point where he's actually maxing out his forces for club head speed generation well after impact. So he's getting zero benefit from it. And if we scroll him down to impact, we see almost identical rotation amounts, right? So this AM did what he wanted to do. He got way rotated in the backswing, way rotated open, 35 degrees open, just like our pro. But look at the knee flex differences. Our AM's demonstrating that kind of saggy knee syndrome where both knees are kind of just laterally coasting through the golf ball, very little force generated to produce clubhead speed, and we can see the scissoring effect that you see in all great ball strikers where our pro is demonstrating. And it's not a physical issue, I promise you that, because we changed this AM to look so much more like the pro relative to these numbers, and his clubhead speed did increase. It's because of wind. It's the timing. The wind is so important when you're looking at gaining rotation. Rotation for the sake of rotation doesn't guarantee you anything. It has to be a useful rotation. You don't want those empty rotation calories in your golf swing. And this is a big way to look at it because it can put a tangible marker on when this stuff happens. And if you're late putting those forces into the ground to generate the clubhead speed, you're not going to see it in ball speed. You're not going to see it in distance. Thanks again for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Also, if you haven't already done so, click on the big golf ball. You'll get the latest videos just as soon as they're released.